everybody. Welcome to the Canine Connection podcast. Today, Laurie and I are here with Brenda Aloff. How do I know Brenda? I know Brenda from a super, super, super long time ago with a dog that nobody really knows unless they know me. And that I love so much. I can still barely talk about this animal. It's terrible. But 1,000 years ago, Brenda was coming to give a seminar and she's a behaviorist. And I'm like, yeah. I don't have any behavior issues. I'm fine. And I think I was supposed to, I don't even know what happened, but they needed I ended up saying, okay, fine. They talked me into it. I'll go. And they said they needed, I don't even know if people had quote unquote working spots at a time, but they needed a very high drive, over aroused field lab. And that was my Zayden. He was always like screaming, vocal, high as a kite. So okay, we'll use him. So of course, since she's coming, I'm like, ugh, I'm so anal. I have to read her book, right? Because you have to do that. So I read her book and I start going, oh shit. Like there's a lot of really good stuff in here that I could apply not just to Zayden, but maybe to my other dog. So it was just barely tipping the iceberg. Turns out Zayden was not wired right. She helped me. I mean, that's a whole nother story for another day, but completely helped me understand him and change his life. So that was all good. But then, like, I'm not even going to lie, at that moment in time, I still didn't really understand what this behavior stuff had to do with my normal dogs in competition sports, like, because they don't have behavior issues, they're fine. Well, fast forward, and unbelievably, my Herculean amount of patience on Brenda's part, trying to get me and some other people I train with to understand arousal, over arousal, why that's not to the dog's benefit, that we want our dogs in optimal arousal, how all this stuff does matter, how to read a dog. My ability to read dogs um, is is a result of what Brenda taught me. My understanding of an arousal is what Brenda taught me. My ability to do up cues, down cues is like my bastardization of things she taught me. So many, like an endless number of things. So now, like, behavior is the foundation, most integral part of dog training, because the biggest piece that most trainers are missing is how to read the dog. Why? Why did my dog do this? I don't know. Well, great. If you don't know, you can't fix it. And then there's just endlessly countless other things I've learned with her. Pressure, everything about pressure, all my pressure games, all the pressure stuff I teach, all all are the result of her teaching me to understand pressure, the effect of it on dogs, etc., etc., etc. So, hi Brenda, welcome, and tell us
You
about
set me
yourself.
up for failure. You make me sound like really special or something. I don't
Well,
know.
I just wanted to also say too that I have never met Brenda in person. However, I work very, very closely with one of her clients, who I train with a lot, and I have heard and have learned many things through this friend of mine. And Brenda is coming out to my place to do a seminar. We are all thrilled. I can't wait to meet you in person.
It will be lovely.
And yes, and I actually have a few students of mine who I've referred to Brenda, who she's helping, which is great. So welcome, Brenda. It's
Thank you.
nice to
I feel
meet
way more than welcomed. I feel like you've set everybody up for disappointment.
you. Oh, no.
Don't don't say that. You've
No
always been
pressure.
like
No
that. Brenda's
pressure.
always extremely humble and always undervalues what she
Yeah,
brings to the
I
table.
agree.
Um, I've known her for a very, very long time. And I've always tried to tell her, stop being like that.
Right.
You have a tremendous amount of incredibly valuable information that all trainers in all sports, not just, across the board, even if you think your dog is perfectly fine, it's not a matter of, is there something wrong with my dog? It's just becoming a
Mm,
better dog trainer and
yeah.
understanding dogs better. Yeah.
Well, I just to return at least one compliment, Petra, I loved you in the very beginning because you said, I'm getting the scores, but, and very few people can recognize that their dog is uncomfortable. Even less do they realize that it could be attributed to them. So, um, I love that when trainers are understanding that even if it looks good here, there's something that you feel might be missing. And that missing piece is, I think, what we're all looking for, first of all. Yeah,
300%.
it's
Yes.
like, it's got to feel right. When I'm healing with a dog, it's not how it looks as much as how it feels to me. And I'm a very kinesthetic learner. So um, that feel is what I'm looking for. But when I connect with other dog trainers, I feel like that's what they're looking for too. When you've reached a certain amount of mechanical skill, right? You have to have a certain amount of mechanical skill set to even be thinking in these places to some degree, because that mechanical skill set is how you initially build the connection. How do you lure a dog into a set? How do you want the dog to stay with you? And one of the biggest questions I asked myself for a very long time was, how do you want to move through space together with your dog? Like, that's, to me, the main question I was asking when I was developing my own philosophies and my own training. How do I want it to feel? How do I want it to move through space together? And, how do I minimize, and correction is a very open term here that we should probably definitely define. How do I minimize what I have to correct because I'm good enough to not have to go there, if that makes any sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so correction to me redirects the dog to the original behavior, period. That's all it can do. So it's not about making the dog wrong or making the dog feel bad. Although sometimes that happens. It's not to confuse the dog. It must redirect the dog back to the original behavior. So I have a little game and I just call it the touch drive game. And if I touch my dogs, I want them to drive back into me. This is not right for everybody and every dog, but it's what I like and it's what I teach my dogs. Um, to me, that's a correction. It looks like a game, but it's often what I use as a correction. And it's not to make the dog feel bad or wrong. It's to make a balance change. It's to interrupt what we're doing so I can maybe get the dog on a little bit different wavelength. It's to rebalance the dog. If I unbalance them, they have to rebalance. It's to maybe alter the energy a little bit up or down, or to stabilize the energy in some way. So that's the first thing that I think, um, when I say correction, that's what I mean. I want to redirect the dog back to the desired behavior that I was looking for in the first place.
How do
So
you how do you teach or what does the touch drive game look like?
yeah, so my terriers taught it to me. So for years, I trained smooth fox terriers. And everything I know, we must give them credit for, because I will never forget going to my first obedience class with my dog at the end of her leash, standing on her hind legs, screaming her head off in absolute arousal. And when she got aroused, it would very soon turn to aggression, to prey drive. With other dogs, it would be like a predatory drift is what it's called. So she wouldn't treat them like a dog. She would treat them like a prey object. And I at least kind of knew well enough to keep things away from her jaws. But I walk in and the instructor, I give her a ton of credit. I walk in with my dog screaming at her hind legs. And I said, I want to do competition obedience. And this woman, God bless her soul, trained Shelties. And she said to me, she was a very droll character. She said, well, you've chosen, what did she say? You've chosen a breed that we usually don't do that with. That's what she said. That was a really good way to question my taste. Because they would get into very high arousal states very, very quickly. And as I say, the threshold from arousal to aggression was very quick to into prey drive, predatory drift, aggression, wherever you want to go with that. They were happy to go both places. And in learning how to connect with that, I had to go a lot of different places that what I would say, dog training myths certainly didn't help with, and there are lots of them in dog training, and also where traditional dog training and even a lot of positive reinforcement dog training didn't cover. All those things can give you some mechanical skills, but there's the science of training and there's the art of training. And once you got the science down, you need to go to the art to find the rest of the answers, because the science can answer almost everything, but it can't answer the way we feel it, right?
Mhm.
You can have the best
Mhm.
mechanical skills in the world and still not love the feel you've got with what's happening in the training. And I guess the place that I always think about is a psychological term that I read somewhere, but I loved it. And it was called power sharing without hierarchy. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want it to feel like that. Now, can you really achieve that with an animal you're training? I don't really think so, because you have to lead the dance, right? Like,
Mhm.
you sign the check if you're going to enter a show. You sign the check. You're the one that determines what you train the dog to do, all those things. So you have to be the guidance in those things. But once the mechanical skills are completed, how does it feel to move through space with your dog? What does that feel like? How does that look? Um, I have a lot of background in dressage and horse training as well. And in dressage, what we actually say is we don't want to see the rider. We want to
Mhm.
be looking at the horse, and we want to see the horse, and we want to see that horse's expression without the expression being dampened so much by precise mechanical skills that there's nothing left of the animal. Am I making any sense?
Mhm. Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, and so those, what I call a dutiful performance is not okay for me. You can you can win tournaments with that, you can do all kinds of things with that, but I once got on, someone had a Grand Prix horse, and I got on the Grand Prix horse and I thought, this is going to be amazing. And it was horrible. The horse felt really heavy in my hand. I mean, this could have been my riding too, but it's how the horse looked with everybody else as well. But the horse was really heavy. Like 20 minutes in, I'm like, I just want off. Like, this is too much work. And I worked for many years with a trainer named Bettina Drummond, and she was an absolute total genius with horses. And if you rode a horse that Bettina had trained, I kid you not, it felt like you sat there and you thought it, and the horse did it. And I finally said, that's what power sharing without hierarchy feels like. It feels like you're in such a chord that there are no corrections have to be made because you're both thinking the same thought. Um, I know that gets a little crystal wavy, but that's the feel I think we're all looking for, is that when we say, when my body looks like heel, I want my dogs to be right there going, yeah, let's do
Mhm.
that. Because that's when it feels good. We can do a lot of things to coerce or to force, and I'm not above that. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not above saying, dude, it's going down right here, right now, because that's part of that relationship too, right? I don't mean that you get harsh
Especially
or rude or anything, but there's got to be a feedback system.
well,
Yeah.
and especially with different dogs and different personalities, right? Like some
Mhm.
dogs can be really tough or they can challenge you. I mean, that's reality. You know,
Yeah.
um, like I'll use my my one student again just because I think because she's training a terrier. And like the reality is she's like, I've come to accept that no matter what I do, sometimes he's just going to leave me and go
That's
sniff
correct.
that thing in the corner. And then I'm gonna go over there and say, dude, stop that and get back here, right? Like, and no, she trains like mostly positive. Like this dog
Yep.
works. It's unbelievable. It's really beautiful. But like he'll be in the middle. I laugh because I have dogs like this, where he's like doing the most gorgeous healing, doesn't about turn. He's like, oh, what's over there? What? You little shit, right? But,
Yeah.
like, that's in him, right? And not
Yes.
all dogs are like that. No, some
Nope.
dogs are very compliant, but some dogs have that element
Yep.
of, "Hey, at the end of the day, I'm bred a certain way and I have a certain personality,
Yep.
and I am like a kid that's gonna scream in the grocery store because I want that chocolate bar at the checkout, and you're telling me I can't have it? What are you, nuts?"
Yeah. Well, conflict resolution is one of the first things you kind of want to have your head wrapped around because the terriers are not like the other children. Terriers and hounds are not like the other children. There's something totally different going on there.
See, this
But
is
we
good.
bred for it.
I've got students with these dogs. This is
Yeah.
great.
We bred for it. We selectively bred for it. So, I do tend to remind myself and those students, well, you knew that was a snake when you picked it up. So there you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, so then it's like, how you build that connection and how you move through space together. I'm thinking about that all the time. I'm probably thinking about it obsessively. Um, and when you think about something obsessively, it's really easy to take it too seriously. And
Mhm.
it's really easy to get naggy about it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things when I'm working with my students is, how do I keep their head in the right place? And this is a conversation I do a coaching call for my online students. And we just had like a 2.5 hour conversation about clinical detachment and all of the things that clinical detachment involves and how it affects your training. Because I don't think you can separate the animal's emotional state, your emotional state, and the training. It's like nature versus nurture. It's so meshed together that you have to always be considering it. And, you know, I really feel like riding horses is where I learned so much of this stuff because my first pony dusted my ass every single day. My 8-year-old body hit the ground every day. And that's what I thought your dog and your cat were for, is to walk home with you. Like, take my pony. The neighbor had a big field and I could ride it. I'd ride my pony down the road and I'd go into the big field and he would put up with me until he was sick of me. And then he would dump me on the ground or, hang me in a tree or something. And I had a Siamese cat at the time and it always went with me and he would walk home with me and the cat would walk home. So as a child, I thought, the pony is for riding and your companion animals are to walk home with. So,
That's
but I
hilarious.
think that, well, first of all, I was a very stupid child because it just pissed me off and made me want to get back on instead of saying that pony probably doesn't want you on him at all. But, you know, sometimes that's where the connection starts, right?
Well, and then I think the reason you got back on is probably because 'cause I'm the same way, and I know Laurie's the same way. It's because you wanna crack the code, right?
You
Like,
do.
there's
It just,
gotta be an
yeah,
answer here
yes.
somewhere, and, like, you can throw me off 800 times, and I'm going for 801 because 'cause I'm like,
That's
sooner
right.
or later, if it's the last thing I do, I'm
Well,
cracking
I
this
love the way
code.
you justified my stupidity. That makes me feel a lot better. But I think, you know, when you start like that with an animal, and sometimes that's how it feels like you start, there's still a connection to be made there. because
Definitely.
I took that pony into the show ring. I got into 4-H club. I took that pony in the show ring, won everything with him. Not at first. It was really ugly at first. He would go in the ring and run away with me and buck. And I mean, all the mothers were saying, stay away from that little girl on the spotted pony. But I think it's not just persistence. You can't just get back on. You got to keep thinking about why that connection looked like that at that moment.
Right.
And so one of the books I read about learning and learning theory was really good. And this woman I love the way she talked about acquisition in particular, because especially, so I'll just offend everybody here. The obedience people are too tough about this, and the agility people are not in the same ballpark at all, which they should be, which is, how you forge a connection that has mutual respect and isn't just built on prey drive.
Hmm.
Because I think prey drive is a place where people often go to make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not averse to that, because the terriers, I often thought, I'm like, the only way I'm going to have their attention is if I could morph into a mouse, and then I would have their attention right up until the time they shook me and broke my neck, which would give me about 10 seconds. But there was a point in time when I would have taken that. Like, if
Right.
I could get 10 seconds, I'd be
I'll
so
take
happy.
it.
And so where is that meeting in the middle? And once again, it comes down to me to perfecting your mechanical skills so that you can put those on autopilot so you can read the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it's so complicated, right? Because this is just timely because there have been a couple episodes in a row where Laurie and I talked about Ever and Zesty, right? And so from the outside, people can be like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? The dogs are, both so accomplished, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. But it's exactly what you said. And they're different dogs with different issues, right? But it's
Yeah.
exactly what you said at the beginning. Like when I go in the ring with Zaina, right now, Zaina is who she is, but like she is reading me like a book. Even in training, I barely talk at all. In
Yep.
the ring, I whisper. If I have to say anything, I whisper very quietly to her, but mostly I'm silent. She can read my thoughts through my eyes, right? She can read my body language. She can read like everything. And she is reading it because she's actively engaged with me. And that's what it feels like we're together. Now, granted, sometimes the scale tilts a little bit because that's who she is. And she's like, I'll take over for a second or two. But I'll take that any day, right?
Yep.
Versus like Zest, who tends a fair amount of time tends to score a little higher than her. On paper has accomplished way more not more than her, right? Like on paper, or you look at him in the ring, he's very precise, he's very accurate. But to this day, I'm missing something because I feel like I'm a lot of times like I'm dragging him, like we're
Yeah.
not in sync. Like you know, and Laurie can speak to what she feels with Ever, but like the whole point of that is like finding which piece is the missing piece. Is it that he's stressy? Is it pressure he perceives from me? Is it that he's not paying attention? Is it this? Is it that? Like that is the super tricky, complicated piece. And is it maybe more than one thing going on, right? Or more than one relationship issue or something in the training, and that I think is the piece, and Laurie, you can comment on that for yourself, like that I find is the most challenging piece. I think obviously not just for me, but I think for all dog trainers.
Yeah,
Laurie, would you?
yeah, I agree. It's finding like I always say refer to as just finding that sweet spot,
Yep.
Um and like this I've been working through similar issues as Petra is with Zesty, with Ever. And you know, I always want to like be like, you know, the dog is so, both the dogs, Zesty and Ever, like they're like, we talked about mechanical skills. The dogs are so trained with mechanical skills. Like they're so highly trained. But it's that missing piece of we want that feeling in the ring. Like I always say, like, Ever worries, like I think I cause a lot of pressure because I get intense. I am a big
Yeah.
personality. I am a lot of person. And I know, like, even in our pet life, like in our household, like if I'm talking and I'm getting exuberant and I might sound like intense and maybe angry, like she slinks out of the room. Like she's like, oh my God. So I then feel like I always have to be so careful with her when I'm training her, which then becomes a problem because like then I'm like, am I enabling her? Because
Yes.
yeah,
See, I told
because at the end of the day, then when push comes to shove, like it's fucking hard. Like it's hard what we do. And I can train her to the ninth degree, right? But when we're under the pressure in the spotlight and all the factors come in, like that we're nervous to some degree. There's a competitive edge flowing through my blood, like I can't
Yeah.
help that. Then she's like,
Yeah, but you need
"Oh,
to put it in
God,
the closet when you're training.
what?"
But you need to put that in the closet when you're
It's
training.
hard, Brenda. Like that's where
Oh, I know
that's
it.
the thing. But like this weekend, we went to the same trial this weekend, Petra and I, and we were like, we've been playing around with so many new things. And all I cared about was just like going through just step by step, being who I need to be forever, wanting her to bring herself to the table as like a 50-50 partnership. Like
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. And I got some great things. I got some really positive outcomes from doing that, which actually led to errors in the ring because then like criteria slipped and she made mistakes because she actually went like her arousal went up. Like so it's just finding that fucking happy.
Well, it's a line. It's thin ice we're skating on because we don't just want the dutiful performance, we want the energy to match.
We
And
do, and then like
when
that's where I struggle because when I can get the energy to match, then she like we're not accurate, or
well, when I'm saying energy matching, I'm talking about something super specific, not just I want the dog high to work at. Petra and
right.
I have worked together just enough. I like a pretty hot dog, and so does she, and I suspect
Too.
you do the same. Like
Yeah.
I like what did Bettina used to say all the time? She'd say, today, every day, I want to ride right on the edge of disaster. Now, that
Fun.
takes a certain animal.
I
Not
agree.
all animals want to ride on the edge of disaster.
Mm.
So you need that. And then if you're going to ride there, you better have the skill set that helps you do what I would call energy matching. So for me, energy matching is if I take my attitude down a little bit, the dog should too. And if I take my attitude up, they should follow. They shouldn't override me. They shouldn't be under me. They should match me. And I would say my whole training system, I mean, it's built around a lot of different concepts, but that's a very basic one because you're never going to get the feel you want if you can't meet there. And so I have, I don't know, entire series of exercises that are just about teaching the dog how to match energy with you. And it's
Mhm.
a process. It takes about a year. It takes a good 12 months, I'd say. Um, to really get to that point where you can ride on the edge of disaster without stepping over the edge.
Hmm.
And that development, it occurs, I have exercises for it, but I think one of the biggest mistakes to do with what with my training system specifically is that you can't just say, I'm going to go do this exercise. That's not how it works. When I show people an exercise, it's not an exercise or a game, it's a way of life now. I would tell you that if I got up from my chair and I walked into the kitchen, my 2 dogs would try to heel. They would fight for it. I can run them into a wall. I can run them into a chair because I'm just going to the kitchen, right? And I look down and I'm like, there they are. They're fighting to heel. Why? Why would they do that? My dogs have always been like that. I had to be careful with the terriers because they would get a little too competitive. I'm like, you guys don't need to fight with each other over heel position. Just kind of find the space around me. But that comes back to how do you want to move through space together? How do
Mhm.
you want that to feel? How do you want it to look? And when we're doing competition work, it's not just how we feel or how we like the look. We have certain technical parameters that we have to meet. That's the harder piece in some way. It's the totally easiest piece, and it's the hardest piece to marry up with everything else in a way. So that how we build that connection, how we match that energy, and that I start very, very simply. I have people bring me their utility dogs. They've got their second or third otch. And if I tell them to do a simple energy matching exercise, a lot of times they can't do it.
Can you give us an example just of one, just so people can kind of
Yes.
visualize?
So I start people on a circle. Remember, I'm a dressage rider. All we do are circles of all sizes. We're just turning in small, tight circles all the time. So I start people on a circle. It's about 20 feet in diameter, I would say. It fits in my 40-foot building. It's probably about 30, about 10, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet from each wall. And the first thing you would need to be able to do on that circle is walk in slow. How many people can walk their dogs in slow like that? It's amazing. The dogs who cannot do slow because of, and for me, that's a biomechanical problem. If your dog can't do slow without forging or bumping you or, not being straight, that's a biomechanical issue that you have not addressed. That's a motor pattern issue. So once the dog can do that, so let's say the dog knows how to heel. So can I go in slow? And the first thing I have to be able to do is be in my circle, be in the building, turn the dog loose and say, do whatever you want, put my hand up in heel position and go to the circle and start walking in slow. And the dog should join me. If they don't join you right away, you've already, in my eyes, got a problem. And that's the first issue you need to address. The dog must volunteer to be with you. You can only, learning theory says this, you can only reinforce voluntary behavior. And we have changed that into something entirely, like we bastardized Skinner's work to the point where I'm pretty sure he wouldn't recognize it. Not that I'm any expert, but what does that really mean? That means if the dog offers the behavior and you reinforce it, there's a different kind of mileage, a different neural network that gets burned than when you lure and feed or you manufacture and feed. Now, there are lots of things we do with the dog that we have to manufacture. They would never come up with it and offer it, right? So we do
Mhm.
our manufacturing repetitions and then we see if the dog offers it. So that's the first thing. If I go to that circle, the dog should want to follow me and be with me. Now, have I done exercises to prepare for that? Well, hell yes. I do an exercise I call following. I literally look at the dog, look at a point, go there. If the dog follows me, I feed him. It's that simple. I teach them to want to be with me. And when they volunteer it, I am extra happy. And after a while, if they don't volunteer it, I would say, hey, why aren't you volunteering it? And when they do volunteer it, I reinforce it. And then I stop reinforcing unoffered responses. Am I making sense there? Am
Yeah.
I Am I
Yeah, I
keeping it
think no,
yeah,
I think
understandable place?
the offering is so powerful because something, and I'm pretty sure this is a problem I'm having with Zesty, but it's a problem with students a lot where you know, it's like click, click, click feed, click feed, click feed, click so fast, and it's like the dog's never even like making a conscious decision
They're
or
not
choice,
thinking. Yeah, you gotta
right?
get into a place where they're participating. If they don't have any skin in the game and you're cheerleading, babysitting, and correcting constantly, you got a problem. And you can get a lot of titles with that problem. That's
Well,
all I know.
it's avoidance of being wrong a lot of times. They're so, or it's
Yeah,
like it's the other, it's like, "Oh my god, he made a mistake. It's all going to shit. What do I do? How do I fix it?" I'm like, "Oh my god, give him a second. Let him try like give him a
yeah.
minute to breathe." And I do like a lot of times try to get my students, like if they're having a problem with behavior, pull that piece out, get the dog to offer it,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
offering is
Yep.
more powerful. But that whole, like, even shaping has become so bastardized that because shaping
Oh,
really
it's so
should be
strange. Yeah.
solving the problem, and it's
Yes.
no longer about solving the problem. It's about throwing the cookie so many times that the dog is never wrong,
Yeah.
that the dog gets closer and closer to approximating the right thing. And
And
then
then
there's
if you don't let them be wrong and figure out how to do it, you are taking away from them that satisfaction that I still feel from falling off my pony every day for a year and then succeeding.
mhm.
Right?
Right.
Right,
We shouldn't take that away from them. That is a very
right.
powerful reinforcer. So, oh, I started a sentence before and didn't finish it. This is so common with me. But basically, an acquisition, it should look like this. And this is the place where people start to go wrong right off the bat because they're told traditional training kind of says, don't let them get it wrong because we're going to pattern train it. And if we let the pattern ever be wrong, then that could get in the pattern.
Yeah.
That's fraught with danger in and of itself. And there's a
Mhm.
place for that idea, but it's not an acquisition. An acquisition, it should look like try, fail, try again, fail better. I love the way that particular author, I cannot remember her name, but the book is called Brain Training for Riders. And it is fabulous talking about acquisition like that. Like, Petra, you just said it. You have to give your students permission to let the dog be wrong. If they're never wrong, the neural network to get out of trouble or make the right choice cannot be formed correctly.
Yeah, so what happens with, a dog that is really, really soft and error averse, like like Zeal soft, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not specifically referring to him in this example, but you
Yep,
understand how soft
yep,
Zeal was.
yep.
And so now, and let's say maybe you had a history of you helped the dog out. Like, now how do you get the dog out of that, right? So that because they don't have that skill set, they're like, "Oh shit, I'm wrong. My world is coming to an end."
And then they tend
This
to,
is internally driven, right? Not externally driven by the trainer,
yep,
internally driven. The dog's like, "I'm gonna die."
yep. So, I mean, we could do 20 million conversations on just the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? But
Mhm.
in that particular case, so to me, whether the dog goes up over the top or shuts down or gets sullen, some anywhere in between those two extremes, it's all arousal. So internally, chemically, about the same thing is happening. The external manifestation might look different to us, but that's an arousal issue. So for me, if the dog is in certain states of arousal, it is not a teaching moment. Doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are. It's not. Are those the chimes on your porch? They're beautiful.
Yeah, it's
I
my
love that. I love
yeah.
just when I was speaking too, I feel so special. So,
It's Champy. It's a dog that passed away. So he
aw,
comes and visits.
I
Aw.
love it that he visited us.
He
That's
visits.
wonderful. So, um, excuse me, I need to say, I just put one of my horses to sleep the first weekend.
Oh
Just so
god.
every time everybody's grieving about anything, it's like I have to
Oh.
Oh,
grieve.
I'm
Sorry about.
sorry.
Um,
Shit, I didn't know.
it's okay. It's all right. He lived a long, happy life. I just, we just get to miss them forever after they're gone. That's the
We
part,
all
yes, isn't
know.
it?
Yes.
Like we don't ever stop. People are like, "Well, I'll get over this," and I'm like, "Well, you won't." So
Right.
stop with that idea. At any rate, I don't even know where I was. Where was I?
Extrinsic, intrinsic arousal, they're in it not
Ye-
they're it's an
Okay, so
arousal issue, which is not a good time to teach them anything.
yes, there you go. So the good repetition of it. So the idea is, how do I affect the arousal? I don't even think about behavior there. And a lot of this comes from my dressage work with horses. Interestingly enough, there's a subset. But the people I worked with would never say the horse had a behavior issue. They would say that they wouldn't put it like this, but the reinforcement contingencies were off, or they would talk about it in terms of biomechanics. And even arousal, we like to act like a behavior, arousal, like those are things that are not physiological. But the fact of the matter is, they're all physiological. So if my dog is in a state of arousal and cannot energy match me, that's a physiological problem. The first place I go with those things would be body work. I have my own dumbed down body work that is nothing special but easy to teach, even to novice handlers with puppies. Um, and I do certain kinds of body work with the dog until it has effect on the central nervous system quickly, so I can aid in the dog's recovery.
Mm.
And Petra, that's right up your alley, because with all your physical therapy work, you've shown me a lot of stuff about physical therapy that I have used and used and used, and it's just right on the money. And I've
Yeah, so it's
used it not for
basically
physical therapy, but
right.
to straighten a dog biomechanically, or to affect their emotional state. So we have to have a way to affect the emotional state. The problem with cookies and prey drive is they often take arousal the wrong direction, or they can take arousal in an unpredictable direction. And I need something that's predictable. I need to be able to press a button and get a reaction that I can count on, right?
So let me just jump in for a second for people listening,
Yes,
because
jump right in.
I kind of know what you're doing, but you're basically doing a tactile intervention, meaning something that you teach the dog, that means change your emotional state or change your arousal in this moment, right? Would that be a
Yes.
correct statement?
Yes. And there are two things that I think are important there. One is, this isn't an emotional report card. So I don't tell them good, bad, or indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
Their emotional state is their emotional state. It is whatever it is. I'm going to see if I can alter it and take them into a place that would be more, what do I want to say, productive
Conducive. Yeah.
at that moment. And it's classical conditioning, is what it is. I'm going to associate a certain touch. So it's not like teaching a cue system. This is not a cue system. It's kind of outside that ballywet. Maybe technically it is a cue system. Hell, I'm not smart enough to know the difference. I only know what
Well, I
works and
think
doesn't.
I think it is a cue, except that's not a good word, because if you say cue, then people think they must click and treat it,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's not where I'm
so,
headed
wh-
at all.
right.
Exactly.
When I teach, I call it a common cue. Maybe I shouldn't, but when I teach that, it's never associated with a cookie. It's never
Yes.
clicked or marked. I don't even want
Yes.
you to say usually good. The information is coming from my hand and my
Yes.
energy and my
y-
breathing, and my
Yes.
hand and my energy and my breathing on your body, which needs to be assessed. Every dog is different. Where does it work for this
You
dog?
bet.
This is my bastardized version of it.
You bet.
Um, so that gives the dog information, and the dog goes understands, and when the dog regulates to where I want it, I remove the tactile information. So dogs
You
really
release it. Yes. It's
high,
about pressure release. Yeah. It's
right.
basic Basic negative reinforcement is what it is,
Yeah, so
right?
dogs really
You apply pressure,
high.
you release it when you get the reaction you want.
Correct. Dogs really high. I apply the what I call my whatever. Let's
Yep.
not name it. I apply tactile pressure with my hand, deep pressure, because that tends to be calming. And then when I feel, as soon as I feel my dog lower their arousal, become more calm or become more stable, I release it.
Yes.
That information says, there you go, now you're good. And so uh, so it that's where it's different from a cue for a behavior where I say sit, click, feed,
Right.
down, click, feed. I
Right.
don't do that. I'm giving the dog info. It also provides, um, by default, like maybe not initial primary goal, but a very strong connection, right? And dogs are not really verbal. So
Yep.
I feel like this is information they understand, like on their level,
Yeah.
and they're
To
like,
get them
"Oh,
their language
thanks."
finally, right? Like touch is the universal language.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. So
think that
yes,
I do think, just to interrupt for a second, maybe Petra, you can give an example of like where you would use that in, like, just say like in the ring, right? Just so people who have
Well,
never
I
really.
yeah, I develop it outside the ring, right? So let's say,
got to be developed in daily life, and you need to do it 20 to 30 times a day until you can see the reaction happening quicker. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, don't be sorry. So basically, like, let's say, well, a classical example that's pretty practical because many people do this. They give the dog a reward event, a tug, and they get the dog very over aroused, right?
Yep.
I'm not even gonna go down the road, should you even do that or not, whatever. So my
Yeah.
dog is now like, "Rah!" Right? So now I say to my dog, "Get into heel position, we're going to heel." Well, in that moment, my dog can't heel. I mean, they could, it would be a mess, right?
Yep.
So in that moment, I on said dog, now it depends with Zaina, I started on her chest and then moved the cue. I faded the cue more and more. With Zest, he always liked if I just held his head tightly against my body, or if I did such deep pressure pulling, like you can't really say petting because it wasn't, it was like almost pulling the skin off his head,
Yep.
right? And so I would do that until I see his eyes get clear, his breathing changes a little bit, he just relaxes. Now I am not doing it until he's comatose. I'm doing it until I see him come to where I want him in the middle, like in optimal arousal, in that window where
Yep.
they're not overly aroused, they're not under aroused, they're exactly where I need to be. Then I
Yeah. I always
stop.
call that relative relaxation because it's relative to a point you choose
Perfect.
or they're at.
Yes.
So it's one point to be.
Right.
Yes.
Because sometimes in some of my classes, then people go too far. I'm like, no, 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 that's not
Yeah.
what we're
Exactly.
after. So
They can't work comatose.
right in the middle. So what I also discovered with zeal, kind of by accident, maybe, or I don't even know, who knows, it was such a convoluted thing, is so I called it a calm cue, but what it wasn't really just a calm cue. It was more of an put the dog big, not just state of arousal, but also Brenda, like you mentioned, emotion. So when Zeal will get nervous in the ring, your instinct is bring his arousal up. He needs more energy. No, that would make him anxious. He would get higher, but
Too
it
much
would
pressure. The pressure creates arousal in the wrong. It doesn't help the arousal.
Okay. So then, yeah, then he would almost be anxious and super jittery. So then I applied that same cue, right? And like basically in my head, I would look at him, apply the cue and say, "You're fine."
Yeah,
Right. Because now I'm dealing with emotion. Yes, it's connected to arousal, but that's what in my mind I'm addressing. And that moment is the emotion.
absolutely. And I
You're
think the
fine.
note
And
there
he'd
is
look,
that I'm sorry. What I
go,
just want to point something out because you said
hmm
something really, really important, which is in your mind, like you got your brain around it, and then you asked him to join you. I really feel like that. I don't believe dogs read our mind. sorry, just not there. But biomechanically or internally, your central nervous system changes. When you can change your mind um, with how you handle yourself physically, right?
So, yeah. So he would read that and then he would steady up,
Yeah,
right? So that's one way I used it. With a dog like Zaina, right? Um, she must be bordering on the edge of disaster because it's the only way I can get her to work,
yeah,
right? It's the only way I can get her to care enough to push whatever, which means I'm right on the edge. So in the ring, I set her up, right? And I go, we're going to do this exercise. And I see her start to throw herself into a little over arousal. Immediately, I touch the side of her head. I've got it down to 2 fingers, literally 2 fingers on the
yep.
outside of the head. And I look at her with this look like, don't do it. Because she's throwing herself there. She happens to think the disaster is a super fun place to be. Like she
Yes.
loves disaster. She
Mhm.
loves being in the midst of disaster. Like she thinks life should be full of disaster, right?
Yes,
So
and if they
I'm
don't
look
have chaos, they look to stimulate themselves to it.
exactly. So I look at her and I go, don't effing do it. Don't fucking do it. Right. And she doesn't get the least bit upset. She goes, okay. And you could see her visibly like
Yes.
rein it all in and go, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold it together.
Yeah.
Right. So now those are polar opposites, varying degrees, and you can use it in a million different places in a million different ways.
Yeah.
The concept being, I am communicating to you in a cue that now I tell people this all the time. I am using these cues in training constantly, like moment by moment by
My
moment,
moment.
day after day, week after week, month after month, decade after decade.
Yep.
Like, so that's where the communication is so well established that when I use it in the ring, it works because
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, this is an emergency, use only in case of
Yeah, you can't wait
emergency.
until a dog is in arousal to fix it.
Yeah.
It's like if you live in, well, you guys, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the East Coast, whatever, me in Michigan, you don't wait till January to put the furnace in.
Right.
Like you better have the furnace where the wood cut or whatever, you better have that ready in September.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's why I tell people, this is not an exercise you do. This is daily life. You need to do this all day, every day, all the time. As you say, decade after decade. It's how the dog gets enough repetition so that the response you produce is timely. Because the first time you take a really aroused dog down to a level that it's helpful,
Takes
relative
forever.
relaxation, yeah, it takes you 20, 30 minutes because
Literally.
if
Yeah.
you get a big adrenaline dump, the first phase of that trying to return to baseline is about 15 to 20 minutes. To take a total return to baseline is 72 hours.
Wow.
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 That's why when people start to get their dogs over aroused, I'm like, why are you playing with that fire like that? Like, don't you know that's going to burn the forest down?
Well, that's the thing, I think that's a big problem because I think a lot of people see dogs who are over aroused. They look, we talked about this, they look sexy and flashy and
Yeah,
fast. And
you bet.
that's what they think is where the dog should be optimally working at. But they're mistaken because just what we talked about.
Yeah, well, and you've got you can work a lot of dogs there, but we talked a little bit about the genetics, but even at that, you can work a lot of dogs very high, but you can't do it with no preparation because it's
Right.
really easy to put a dog into some form of arousal, whether that looks like over the top or shut down. It's all the same thing. You can put them there pretty easily, but recovering from that is a physiological process, and that takes practice.
Right.
Yeah, so, like, it's gotten to the point now where I could literally, like, if I take Zaina and I have videos of this, like in it, like literally moment second, I can go give her a quick cue. You can visibly see her start to go up. I give her a second cue. You can visibly see her start to bring her set
You
arousal down.
bet.
It's
And
immediate. It happens
yes.
immediately in response, and she can adjust it super quickly.
And
Now
it's predictable.
it's yes, and the most fascinating thing, I don't know, Brenda, if you've witnessed this, but I have seen this across multiple dogs now, so I
Yeah,
know it's not a fluke,
right.
is my dogs have learned or learn at some point to manage their own arousal in very
Yes.
specific situations. So
Yes.
Zeal used to, this was in the old days when we did a figure eight with 2 humans and a third and the judge, right? And
Right.
he hated it.
Yeah.
So he would get excited after his exercise, right? Like I go, good boy, that was really good. We'd set up for the figure eight and I'd go 8 figure eight. 100% of the time he would do a huge yawn. It was not stress per se because he was adjusting his arousal down and then he'd
Yes, I was
look
just
at
gonna say
me.
yawns, lip licking, a lot of the things that people talk about in dog body language say, oh, that's all stress. Stress has a big continuum. There's eustress, there's distress, right? Good stress, bad stress, so to speak, in layman's terms. And it's but yes, if you do your body work, if you do your energy matching, that's the whole point, is that the dogs can learn how to use that themselves to self-soothe and put themselves in the appropriate place. That's where cooperation changes in a huge way. That's when the dog starts to feel much, much, much more cooperative because their energy, their emotional state is not in your way.
Yeah, it's really well that so just we should take a quick side trip on that because like that's so important what you said, right? About the yawning, like because so for example, Zaina will do a snapping behavior,
Yeah,
snap,
Brianna
snap.
did too. Snap, snap.
If I walk away on signals and as I'm walking away, I hear snap, snap, I'm like, "Thank God," because I know 100% she's dialed in at that moment in time.
Yep,
If I don't hear the snap, snap, I'm like, "Oh, shit." Like, it could go either way. It's
yep,
dicey, right? Because she's doing it, like, to adjust her arousal and to go, "You must." She's like,
yep.
I don't know, in my mind, she's saying, "You
Yeah,
must
it's
focus."
a physical way. It's like, you know how therapists will teach you to like put a rubber band and snap your wrist if you feel anxious or something. I mean, there's a whole
Yes.
classical conditioning that goes with that. But yeah, for the dogs, they have these physical mannerisms that they use to start to place themselves where they know they, as you say, that optimal state. I call it a state of readiness for whatever we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, so that everything they're reading, like when all those behaviors are not always one thing, right? Like, so yes, my dog could yawn and be stressed, but my dog could also yawn. Like, so the reason I know that for Zeal it wasn't stress was because I knew that when that judge said forward, if I didn't bolt out of heel position, he was going to be gone. So he
Yeah.
was so ready in that moment, right? That he was like forward and I was like go. Like I used to just say to myself like go. If he was stressed and the judge said forward, I would have been like heel and prayed to God he came with
Right.
me, right?
Right.
Yeah, I call
Right.
that idea meet the dog where they are.
Yes.
Right? You often have to meet the dog where they are right now and adjust from there when you're talking about arousal and emotional states and how to manage them. And in dressage, we actually so if you were around a horse trained by Bettina, the first thing you would know is she trained them kind of feral, which made them not for beginners. But
Mhm.
what it did was she didn't mess with their energy or their reflexes when they were young. They couldn't hurt you. Like, there were lines. But when she did the break-in on my Lusitano gelding and I first started riding him, it was terrifying because he wasn't used to having any of his energy contained. He was used to you just like going with it. Well, I am not a racehorse jockey. So that's not how I was used to riding. And there was an adjustment period where actually I would stand on the mounting block, kind of pissing my pants a little bit, getting that. But what that does is, I mean, in my dog training, what I would say to people is, stop squishing the energy. You can't just let it roar around either, like totally out of control. Like the terriers would have just killed everything in sight if that was the case. But you can be the eye of the storm. That's one of the ways I describe it. And the other way is take that energy they're bringing to you and channel it. And then my really regular students and so on, and I often get into conversations about what they have dubbed clean energy versus dirty energy. And the energy that we can use is clean energy. Dirty energy is tinged with something: distraction, anxiety, status, something's going on there with that. But the energy doesn't feel totally usable to you. So when they take their energy away, like if they drop out from under you and get kind of sullen and shut down, that is a real, people wouldn't think about it like this. I do, because neurobiologically, that's arousal. It's just how it looks that kind of gets people thinking it's something else, I think.
So would you do the same thing there, like a tactile intervention?
You bet. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to affect that kind of arousal. First, I have to physiologically adjust the dog so that they can hear what I'm saying, or
So
that
what
a cue
about
would go
dogs?
through or whatever.
I mean, I know what my answer is, but what about dogs that resist that tactile, for lack of a right? Because their dogs are gonna,
Sure.
for
Yeah, because
various
it's not their
reasons,
idea.
right?
There is a lot going on in a relationship where that's occurring, but it happens to all of us. Everybody's going to meet resistance in a dog. Well, what is resistance? Resistance is physical resistance shows up because there's a mental resistance
Mental.
occurring. I truly believe that. So I reduce the physical resistance to reduce the mental resistance. So body work. And if the dog says, I don't want body work right now, I'm like, well, kind of sucks to be you at this moment. I work it until it works.
Yeah. So, Laurie, you don't have to do this if you don't want. I just think that Ever's a really good example um because she was like Zeal, you know, like, okay, I have a dog that's over aroused. I need to lower the dog's arousal. I have a dog that's low arousal. I need to increase it. What happens when I have a dog that 1 minute its arousal is going up? Then I'm like, oh God, Laurie, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
Ever's like that, like Zeal used to be
Yeah.
like, she's like moment by moment, it's one thing, then it's the other, then it's the other. And then you're scrambling, like, well, now what do I do? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? Do you want to, like, I mean,
Yeah,
you don't have
yeah.
to, but
Well, that's really exactly what it is, you know, 1 second she's sitting there looking like she wants to die. That's the best way I can describe it for everybody to understand. Like, that is that low arousal, Brenda, right? That you're
I mean,
referring
she
to.
looks like she is
Amen.
going to die. Like, she's like panting.
She's
I
sitting
like,
Yeah.
and
Like,
yeah,
stretched,
she
punching
can't
yeah.
her
even
face.
literally, she's, like, swallowing, like she's got cotton in her, like, I feel so bad for this dog. But then the next minute, like, and I mean, the thing is that this is where, like, I can sort of manufacture the arousal a little bit by like, just my kind of some things I can do in like a fleeting second. I can bring her up, but it goes way up. Like, like, I'll get, if I can bring her up with whatever like
Like a
silent
cue.
cue, like whether it's like just the staring game, I hold my breath, she thinks that's super fun. But then now I'm getting barking in the ring.
Right, because you're never regulating her arousal there. You're just jacking it around. You're not
Right. And it's so
there's
like always
she's
this
not finding
feeling.
homeostasis. Like
Right.
every
And
place every place where I don't have an energy match, I have to ask myself, first, have I taught the dog how to match my energy? That's the first place that I would think about. Um, body work is one of the first places I would go here because
I've
that
met
offers
the matching energy thing, Brenda. I think what happens is when we see the dogs get sucky, that's the term I'll use.
yes,
Everybody
because
knows
it's true. We
that.
panic.
We do the work.
Yep.
Like
We do
we
the
are the
work.
circus
Yes.
act in the moment.
Yep.
We hit the panic button and we act like jackasses in whatever way we
Well, I
can.
think we
Because
start
it
what I
doesn't
call
feel
cheer.
good. Like, that arousal doesn't feel good. But
Yep.
when she comes up and she's a bouncing, barking lunatic, that feels better. But it's
Well, it
still
does feel
not
better.
but
It's
it's still
yeah,
not correct,
right.
right?
Because when the dog is too high, they are forward thinking in that moment. That's what we would call it in
Uh-oh,
riding.
what
At least they're
happened?
forward thinking. But when they go low, they actually remove their
I don't
energy
hear
from us.
anybody.
When they're too high, they use their energy against us. When they're too
You
low,
hear
they
me?
actually just take it away. And that does make us feel pretty bereft in that moment because where the hell do you go with that? They just said, I'm withdrawing, I'm dropping out. And
Yes.
dropping out makes us panic
In
in
yeah.
vivid ways.
Yes.
But we can't provide then reinforcement contingencies for over the top or dropping out. It's easier if you can think of it as it's all the same thing. Whether they're up or dropped out, it's
It's still
arousal.
the same.
It's all the same thing.
Right.
So physiologically, some of the same things can work. So that's why I would say it doesn't matter if they go up too high or down too low. I'm going to start with body work, but in my daily work, I have to ask myself, why would they go there? And probably it's because there's a reinforcement contingency present. So now we have two issues, right? We have a physiological issue and we have a reinforcement issue because we haven't made it clear to the dog that there's a different place to be. So I guess my first part of it is the body work helps the dog find homeostasis somewhere. Homeostasis is a state of balance. It's all bodies want to be in homeostasis. We might want to be in a higher energy or lower energy, but we don't want it too high or too low, right? We want it the Goldilocks place,
Yeah, that sweet spot.
sweet spot. And when we take a dog too high or too low without being able to create a place of homeostasis, then that's how it gets out of control. And that's when we tend to start doing really crazy shit.
Yep.
Because now, when the dog goes low and we try to cheer them up, some dogs now go lower because they're
Yep.
like, oh, you liked it when I went low. You're reinforcing that. So I'll go lower. So now every time you try to bring the dog up, they just fall out from under you. Or they will jack back and forth between that too high, too low, too high, too low because they don't physiologically know how to put their body in the right place.
That's how I feel. That's what I feel I have with Ever.
Yep. And
That's my big struggle.
yep. And so, as I mean, if you were a regular student of mine, I would talk to you a lot about the body work I wanted you to do. I would start you on a standby circle and I would start with showing there's a balance. And in obedience, this is particularly particular. There's precision and there's energy. We tend to do this with the energy and then try to make the precision find a place. But it doesn't really work like that. We do precision and then we work the arousal around that level until we can work them there. And there's a nice place, a sweet spot. We can feel it. And we raise
Right.
the precision and we work the energy. So you don't want to reject energy they bring you. And yet high arousal or low arousal is the enemy of precision. And even if you're doing agility, you should want precision. You should love precision, even though, the people who tell me they are free spirits tend to reject the precision a little bit. But there is a place where the energy and the precision meet. That's your sweet spot, right?
Right. Yes, it's that it's like the golden nugget,
Yep.
that you can't explain that. This past weekend there were this is just where I've been struggling the most with
Yeah.
ever. And I've been doing some different things out of the context of formal obedience exercises to work
That's what this needs
on.
to happen.
Well, I didn't hear what you said. What did you just say?
That's exactly where this needs to happen. I don't want to do
Yeah,
the
because
obedience
yeah,
exercise.
and it
Disaster. Yeah.
I'm scrambling a little bit, like trying to, and of course a couple people have been helping me. But it did carry over, and there were some
Yep.
glimmers of
Then you get
moments
some moments.
where that's where it feels really good.
Yes. And you want to keep looking for those moments. But so I mentioned the standby circle. First, the dog has to voluntarily join you
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And I literally start with freeze and feed every step. No sit. I don't want the dog to sit. I freeze and feed. I don't tell them stand, but I don't want them to sit. And I literally take one step and keep my legs apart. I don't close my feet. If I close my feet, it means sit.
Yep.
So my legs are apart. I literally do like a left leg. I start with my left leg. Left leg goes forward, feed the dog. Right leg forward, left leg forward, feed the dog. I'm always feeding the dog on a left leg forward. And I've
Mhm.
learned over time that you need to do it like that. When I can freeze and feed and it feels easy, and I'm not even going to go into reinforcement delivery because that's an entirely different conversation. The reinforcement delivery is crucial. And my reinforcement delivery is more like an impulse control game than just jamming food at them, because you can control the dog's emotional state with your reinforcement delivery in amazing ways. And so I'm taking my steps. So I freeze and feed every step. When that feels pretty good, I do every 2 stops. So it would be a left, right, left sequence for 2
Mhm.
steps. And then I feed every 3 steps. Then I feed every quarter circle, then every half circle, then a whole circle. And I like to work up to 2 circles. When I say I've worked up to 2 circles, I mean there could be distraction and I am not giving the dog feedback. When I freeze and feed, that's your feedback. I'm silent. I'm not helping. I'm not babysitting. I'm not compensating for their errors. They are responsible for this.
And when you say you progress to, the next step, that's when you say it feels, what did you say? It feels easy.
Yeah, it should feel easy. Like
Like
some
the
dogs.
dog is like, I just want our listeners to kind of understand that,
Yeah, so easy
I
means.
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But
So explain it. There you go.
yeah, it's it's effortless. The dog is 50 bringing 50% to the partnership of that. I don't really know how to say it. So
Yeah,
that
well, when it's
like,
easy, you feel like you can move on, raise your criteria, and they'll be able to keep up.
yeah.
How about
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was a good clarification. Now, once I can do that, now I don't have to work up to 2 full circles. If I have a half a circle, I can start the next step, which is I add the down. And the down is both my gauge and my control button. It's not really a control button, it's a neutral button. So first I would also tell you, it must always be a fold back down. And my fold back downs, when I say down, I literally want my dogs to jump backwards. And they have to love their down. They have to think that the down is the best thing in their world. They got to love the down.
There you
With a
go,
lot
Petra.
of dogs
You
I'm
do that with
starting with
Dusty.
that haven't been with me, I will just lure the down here. And when I say lure the down, I never lure and feed, because I don't even know what that is.
So there's
But
criteria on the down.
yeah, so the criteria on the down is that they have to fold back. And it needs to be prompt and obedient, right? So now I'm walking in slow. Remember, all the work on the standby circle, it is done in slow. We're not doing anything normal or fast. It's slow. And I will take my 2 or 3 or 4 steps, however many steps I'm going to take. And I turn towards the dog and I just tell them to lie down, and I want them to fold back down. So if I need to lure them to get what I want, I do. That would be done by luring them into the down, taking the food away, saying down again, and then placing the food on the floor between their knee and elbow. That specifically.
Okay.
Once they can do that, and the down is like, they're starting to be like, yeah, I get my dogs to the point where actually if I start to turn my shoulder towards them, they'll often back up and lay down on the standby circle. Because they know we're on the circle. They know what that means.
Right.
The circle becomes, as in dressage, we would call it the sacred figure. And so when we're working this, what I'm doing is laying the foundation for me to start working arousal up, arousal down. So now when that's easy, the dog is in a down. I'll get the dog up. I'll take a couple slow steps and I'll jog 2 or 3 steps, and then I lay the dog down. You would be surprised the dogs who now the down doesn't fold back or the down is not prompt and obedient.
Okay.
That little arousal, they already lose their precision. That's a problem. That's where, a friend who's a professional horse trainer, and she says all the time, she's like, that's where the virus starts.
I like that.
Because, when you catch a virus, you don't know you've caught it until you start to show symptoms. And so it's a good analogy here, because any sloppiness there, I'm going to tell you, it's showing up in your work everywhere you look if you know how to look for it. And so once that's easy, the dog can take 3 tiny jogging steps where nobody's excited, and the down is prompt and obedient, I can start to add a little more arousal. And even for those dogs, I'm going to ration the arousal. So I might jog 3 steps and lay the dog down and do 5 seconds of body work and walk around the dog in a circle like I'm testing the stay, and work a little duration on the down. So I might be in arousal for literally a count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then it's got to be arousal down, or the dog is already by habit going to a place that I don't want them to be. And I work it from there until I could have them in high, peel them off the ceiling arousal and tell them down, and it would be prompt and obedient, and I could walk out the door and they'd never break the stay.
See, and that's the thing, like, because we had talked about that in the beginning, like, I love that. I like the hot flaming dog. I like them like that. But
We can like it a little too much to the detriment of the dog's emotion, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the bad part. And especially if you don't understand the dog's native language and you're reading arousal as happiness or excitement, you're fucked.
Yeah, which is what I thought it was.
Because
Or Stormy.
yeah, because then your entire judgment is based on a lie.
Yep.
Every decision you make is based on the wrong premise. And so that whole really understanding how do dogs work with each other? Like, what is their native language about? One of the first books I wrote was about canine body language, for God's sake. Why? Because everything is based on that. If you're not reading the dog, you're not even having the same conversation. And we're already in a very dangerous place with animals because sensorially, their world and yours are not even close. A dog is kind of green red colorblind. It's about 20% blurred. Their depth perception is very different than yours. All those things are already vastly different. What you see and what they see and are perceiving, not the same world.
Right.
So now if you add, I can't read your body language accurately on top of that, that's where that, what I call that chasm comes in. That chasm between what you think is going on and what the dog's perception is of what is going on can be vastly different there. And so the native language of the animal you're training is a pretty big deal. And then you can factor in things like a horse's vision is creepy as all get out. And people punish horses for shying all the time. Well, I'm not saying that you need to let them do it or encourage it, but you had better realize that their perception of what's going on, they see in this weird, narrow, horizontal line that's really wide. And again, there's not a clarity of color like we have. There's not a clarity of like the blurriness is there as well. They're also seeing things a little magnified in a strange way. And when you're jumping a horse, which I don't do, by the way, I'm too chicken for that. But when you're jumping, the horse can't see the jump about 2 strides out. They're jumping blind.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And, humans, I don't know how much good it does us really, but we get about 33% of our brain is prefrontal cortex, executive decision making area. How much do you think a dog gets? I always love to ask this question because nobody gets it right. I didn't either. So maybe it's just justification for my own stupidity again, but I thought, well, they've got to have at least 10, right?
Yeah.
Because we see them, right? Like they make some amazing decisions. We've all
Yeah,
seen
like
our dogs go, we go,
they
that is so smart. Like, right?
good decision. We say good
Good decision, we
decision.
say. That's a whole nother category again. There are people like Robert Sapolsky and Sam Hill who don't even think humans have free will. So there you go. But the idea that we base, like our behavior is so much based on how much we have for executive decision making is astonishing. And we have self-awareness, so we can modify our own behavior. Remember, your dog does not have self-awareness. He cannot possibly modify his own behavior.
Right.
And
Right.
I think
Like,
Robert
they're just
Sapolsky's
like,
right.
oh,
Like
I'm
they're
acting weird
yeah,
right now.
that they're driven 100%. And
Which
I'm
is
not so
hard
sure
because,
we
like,
are
we
either
stand
by the
there in the
environment.
ring and we're like, "Why are you acting like a weirdo? Stop acting like that."
Yeah.
And, like, really, they have no perception of that.
They don't, because they're basing everything they do from what the environment, and you are part of the environment, is cueing them to do, and how they're prioritizing the environment. So once again, if you aren't prioritized over the environment in your daily training, there is no hope when the rubber hits the road in the ring. They don't have any background to do that. And then I think we're also taking a look at, how much prefrontal cortex does a dog have? 5%. That's why it looks like they don't have any impulse controls, because they don't.
Right. Right.
And a horse doesn't have any. A horse does not have a detectable area for a prefrontal cortex. So that makes riding even stupider than we originally think. Like, why would I get on 1,200 pounds? That's only a reflex, right?
Right.
A reflex. But it does give you a different way to approach your training in so many ways. Because when you're not counting on self-awareness, morality, or any of those things that we can count on with humans, um, I think you can start to frame your training very differently and much more helpful to the animal. So, as far as impulse control goes with dogs, we are forever the Jiminy Cricket on their shoulders, right? If I'm
Yeah.
present, my dogs have impulse control. And if I don't, they don't. Unless I've classically conditioned impulse control to something else.
Mm.
I don't know, man. I'm present, and Zaina still doesn't have impulse control.
Well, right? Nothing is a given, is it?
Oh,
Because
I know. I just have to
and
say it. You
because
cannot.
with the terriers, they were so impulsive and so reflexive. I look back and with the skill set I have, the fact that I got those terriers anywhere without being constantly embarrassed instead of occasionally is kind of miraculous in and of itself, because the smooth fox terriers, even in the terrier group, are known for having no impulse control. And I always said the difference between a wire fox and a smooth fox is if you take that wire fox by the chin hairs and say, dude, I am not kidding you. They'll okay, glance at their watch and say, you got 3 seconds. And your smooth would look at you and say, you're kidding, right? So, anything that I trained was an improvement on that, which was
But
very helpful.
I also think the key is and this is where people struggle. And you made a really key point more than once. Um, is they have to have mechanical skills first, right? Because
You
if they
do.
don't, they can't even process. This is
Right.
where I struggle as an instructor. I'm always trying to explain, I am trying to train my students to be dog trainers, and
Yes.
they're just trying to learn how to teach behaviors, right?
They
And then I'm like, dude, didn't you see? You were looking right at your dog. You did not see that happen. They're like, nope. And I'm like, how? How is that possible? Because they don't have
they
those
can't.
mechanical
Yes.
skills yet.
You know how people would used to say, are you good at multitasking? And people would say yes. And I would have been one of those, yeah, I am
Yeah, but we're
amazing at
not.
multitasking. And then you find out that actually, technically, that's never true.
Correct.
And if you
Yeah.
think you're good at it, it's just because you have an inflated sense of yourself that, you're just as pissy
Right.
at it as everybody else. So they don't even call it multitasking anymore. It's now task switching. Because what we know is if I'm doing 10 tasks, my brain has to do a little of this one, switch to this one, switch to this one, just like a
Mm-hmm.
computer chip, eh? Um, so when you think about how that works, thank God we're all really bad at it because humans are bad at it. But guess what? Dogs are worse.
Mm.
That's
But
your
the
open
thing
door,
is,
man. That's your in. They can't be distracted if you're bothering them enough. So,
the thing is, what I want, the reason you got the terriers to do what you got them to do, and the pony, is because what I believe you did was, because in a way they were challenging, right? I always
yeah,
say, I wish I could give some of my students Zaina to train for a few days, because they would be such better trainers,
they would.
because they're gonna she will 300% hold you accountable, and she has no patience, no tolerance for
Yep.
humans and their inconsistencies and their
Yep.
shenanigans. She's like, dude, no, you are dead wrong, and I am going to yell at you for doing it dead
Yep.
wrong, right? So when you have certain situations, you must learn to read the dog. You have no
Yep.
other choice but to learn to communicate with the animal in a way that the animal understands.
Yeah.
We've bred dogs, I think a lot of dogs have been bred to be super tolerant for
Absolutely.
humans and they'll tolerate an enormous amount of, like,
Bullshit.
yeah, because we're training them, like, using our human brain and putting our
Yep.
human behaviors and thoughts and feelings onto it instead of learning how to read the dog. I almost feel like in a weird way, like that
Yeah.
should come first. Like everyone's like
It
immediately
should.
clicker cookies, or cute,
Yeah.
like say yes, cookie, yes. And it's like the whole, wait a minute, learn who this dog is. How does
Yep.
this dog communicate? How does this dog see the world? What makes this dog tick? Like,
Think those are
that secondary, and it should be
right.
primary,
It
and
should
it's
be
like
primary. But
yeah.
remember, how many dogs a day did you handle? Do you handle?
Well, I mean, like, I have said that, right? In all fairness,
Right?
like,
I mean,
first of all,
when
I'm obsessed. So I've
yeah,
watched a
there's
million
that.
YouTube videos. I watch my dogs obsessively. When I did
Yep.
rehab, I worked on a million dogs. And there
Right?
it's like, you better read their behavior or you're going to get
Yep.
bit, right? Like Laurie
Yes.
had
And
said, like,
I
she was a
had at
vet
one
tech.
time,
Right.
at
Yeah.
one time I had, I don't know, 12 dogs in the house and I boarded between 20 and 60 a day.
Yeah.
And I put them in play groups. I mean, there were play groups of one, don't get me wrong. But that kind of volume hones your ability. But here's what I do say. You can learn to read your dog,
Right.
students. They can at least learn to read their own dog, but it feels difficult as an instructor because like you say, I'm always like, "Well, did you see that?" And they're like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Alrighty then." I do some filming when I'm instructing. I
We
try
do
to
a lot.
explain it, you point out the errors and everything. But even at that, sometimes even Diane, my assistant trainer, should be like, "You got to remember, we're not seeing what you're seeing." And I think that makes it sometimes difficult to relate to a student.
Well, I think I've kind of figured that out, and I'm, like,
Yeah, you
working
just
on
have to be
being
patient with it.
better about
Be
that. Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
But I just want students to understand, like, I think that's why I emphasize it so much, and we emphasize
Yeah.
it on this podcast, like, constantly,
Yep.
read your dog, watch videos, watch them in life, so and so. But
Yep.
having said all that, like, just to put everything full circle back in perspective, like, I was at the trial this weekend, Laurie will attest to this, and I'm, like, banging my head against the wall, like,
I know.
what is Zesty's problem? Is he distracted, or is he worried, or is he this, or is he that? Like, right?
Yeah.
Because when it's your dog and when it's
It's
something
a
you're
totally different ball game.
right, and when it's that thing you're looking for, so that piece is hard, being objective about that, and that thing where, like, dogs will look a certain way. Like, for example, Zesty can look like he's dying, like he's so stressed out, like he has these big, droopy, sad eyes, and he just looks like he's dying, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he's stressed, he's under pressure, and he's distracted." And I'm like, "God damn it. You don't look distracted, you little liar."
Well, and then there's the dog that looks better than they are, and the dog that looks worse than they are. I'll have a dog and it looks really, really stressed, but it'll take a treat from me. And I'm like, well, you can't be that stressed, dude.
Mm,
Right. And I think
yeah,
then there's those nuances, and dogs have to use the same signal for different things. The way I usually
yeah.
explain it at a body language clinic would be my daughter was graduating, getting her Master of Fine Arts from the Iowa Writers Workshop. She says, I want a dictionary. Well, I'm like, we have this dictionary. It's like a paperback Webster's, right? And she's like, no, 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 no. I need this dictionary. This dictionary had like 10 volumes that were $100 a piece,
Oh my
right?
god.
And it was filled with millions and millions and millions of words that we use to describe the environment around us and our internal states. And dogs don't have that.
Mm.
Even at a clinic, I'm like, I want you to name every part of a dog's body they use to speak with. And you can barely get to 15. Even if you start including things like blinking and breathing. They got their tail, they got their
Mhm.
body, their ears, they have tension, they have breathing, they have blinking. I'm only to 6.
Right.
Right.
They don't have that much to work with.
Mm.
And they don't have self-awareness. So your dog is actually talking all the time. Every move they make is language to each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because they don't have very many body parts, you have to start to people always like, well, I want to watch the tail. And I'm like, well, it's not kind of about the tail. It's about if each body part were a word, there could be a sentence and then there's a context. So if I ask you to spell the word two, how would you spell it?
Right.
Mm.
Right? Two, T-O, two as in also T-O-O, or two as in the number T-W-O.
Mhm.
And so what you have to do with the dog is if all they can say is two, you got to figure out that context to figure out
Mhm.
what is going on. And I feel like the ears and the tail, which people think are the biggest, want to say are the biggest indicators, are really not. To me, those are the nuances. So they're like an adverb, or an adjective, something like that, not a noun. And then there's, as you say, factoring that into, okay, I'm going to read the dog's body language and I have to make a judgment on it to help us out, and not really knowing what judgment you should make because they're using the same body part.
Mm. Well, now I don't
Say
feel
something.
quite it. I feel only marginally less dumb.
Yeah, but it happens to all of us. Sometimes if I've got a group of dogs, I can only tell what one dog is doing by the other dogs. Does that make any sense?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like if
because
I've got
they're
a group
easy
of
to
dogs
know.
and everybody's looking pretty good, but I have one dog that suddenly leaves the group, there is a reason that dog left the group. And it's
Right,
Mhm.
quite
something in it.
possibly that one of the other dogs in the group said, get the hell out of here. Nobody wants you
Mhm.
here. And that signal that they might do for that would be so subtle. But Petra, when we teach the dogs to have attention, the way I know your dogs have attention, Laurie, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. We can use that if they flick their eyes. That's a gauge. It can be too much arousal. It can be distraction. But on some level, also, you can go kind of radical behaviorist, which means when I'm doing shelter work, I don't have a clinical history. I have nothing. I've got a
Mhm.
dog in front of me doing whatever it's doing. And so I just basically say the dog is doing X. I'm going to teach it to do Y. The dog is jumping all over me. I'm gonna
Right.
step into them till they put their feet on the floor. I'm not even gonna tip the
Sometimes
sit. I don't have time. I'm working as shelter dog, so
Yeah, sometimes I tell students that I'm like, if we're
Mhm.
not sure what's going on, we're like, okay, let's just get it to do like the other thing.
Treat the
You know,
symptom.
I think it's always that thing. I think what I'm referring to is that like in this case, which is what we talked about at the beginning, which is that super subtle thing,
Yeah,
where it's like you're on the same page, the dog's giving you the same energy, like
yeah.
you're both in sync, you
Right.
know.
You're just gonna keep
Um,
directing them to that desired behavior that already has a reinforcement history anyway.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You're just gonna redirect the dog to the behavior that already has a reinforcement history. Like eye contact. Like if you're eye flicking, dude, you know better. You know how to do this.
Yeah.
And if I think it's really nervousness, then I'm probably going to do a little body work and then try it again. Because sometimes that's the only way you can figure it out. You do stuff until you're like, well, that works.
Until you
So
figure it out. Yeah.
you just start cycling through things until something works. And that
Works.
thing that works might be different in different circumstances, even to be
Right.
super helpful to people who are listening. Like we don't know either really, and we're just guessing as well.
Well, and that is what it is sometimes, right? Is experimentation. And that's another area I feel like the dog community, training community or sport community tends to be weakened, right? Because it's like this
Very.
fear of like, well, I don't want to try. Like they'd rather do insanity, right? The same thing over and
Yeah.
over again, hoping for a different result because this is the way it's always been done, or this is the way everyone says
Yep.
to do it, or whatever. Then try a different way because it might not work. And then what? My whole world's going to come to an end.
Yeah.
Everything's ruined. It's never,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, guys, just try it. It's okay.
Try
Like,
it.
if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out, we'll try something else. And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Yeah. You're training the most forgiving species on God's green earth.
Uh,
Seriously.
uh,
So there you go. I think there's that. You have to give people permission to experiment, but then you also can't say, oh, well, it didn't work because I did it twice. And so I'm going to change.
right.
And people don't really know the difference of that either. We've all got the student that goes and somebody said this and somebody said that and somebody said that. And I took a poll at the show and everybody says all these things. And then they go try all these things. Well, if they're not coherent, I mean, I have, yeah, I mean, once I started taking lessons from Bettina, she did things in such a specific way that I will take lessons from her or one of her students. Now she's gone from me. I cannot hug her in person anymore. So I have a student of hers who is really good, and I go to Liz now. Liz is my trainer now. Because if I go to other people, they don't necessarily know what I have on board, right?
Right. Yeah.
I never discourage my students from going to see different people, but I do tell them that they need to philosophically know that that person is at least in the realm philosophically of where they're thinking they want to be.
Right. Yes, you can't, right. It has to
Right?
kind of fall in line, or you have to adapt it so that it kind of falls in line with the
Yes.
philosophy of
It's
how you've
kind
been
of
training your dog. Like, I'm really good at,
exact.
like, I say bastardizing something, right? Like, hear something
Yeah.
somewhere and then go, how can I
How do
apply
I put
that?
what I do? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in a way, like, with how we do it, and you have to try it long enough that you can't really do it for a week or 2 and then go try it in a
Right.
show and then go, "Well, it didn't work." Well, I
Right.
don't know, did you really do it long enough? Is
Right.
Yeah.
it, because or, "Yeah, it was a little better at the trial than it wasn't." Well, okay, that's really good, it held up for part of the trial. Keep
Sure.
at it until it holds up for
Yeah.
the
It's
whole trial.
enough data
Um
to be able to make a determination about the data you've collected.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
There
that
has to be a certain
data collection, right? That's so
knowledge.
important. Like, collecting data, right? And analyzing data and writing it down. Like if I say to somebody, "How many months have you been doing this?" Like my poor training partner, I throw him under the bus all the time. But he writes it all down now, but he didn't used to. So I'd go, "Dude, how many months have you been working on this?" 2." I'm like, "Try 5." And I'm like, "And it's not even my dog. So what are you doing?" Like, how can you tell me it's 2 months? You need to write it down because if you're not keeping track, how do you know? Like, at what point do you know this is working or this isn't working? Or I've tried this, I've tried that. Like, if you don't keep track, you're never, it should be
Yep.
more scientific or more thoughtful, right? Like, yes, I experiment, but within that, I am keeping track of like, okay, I've tried this and I tried it long enough that I know it did or did not work, right?
Yeah, and if you're
Um,
constructing, you've got an advantage because you can try to cross, a series of 20 to 100 dogs and start to feel baselines from there too.
yeah.
I'm gonna
The
interrupt you guys because I'm gonna have to exit.
Oh, we
yeah.
don't want you to leave, Lori.
I'm sorry. I have students waiting.
Where are your priorities?
I could sit here all
And your
day.
students will be glad you chose them.
That's right. That's
You have
right.
good students. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Brenda. Thank you
Hey,
so much.
thank you for inviting me. I had way,
Yes.
way, way too much fun. I hope I didn't travel around too much with my
No, I thought this was,
I
like,
get kinda
super
I get
good.
scared
No, it was so
track.
good. I feel like we need to have you on 8 more times.
Yeah, I'm up
Yeah.
for it as long as you guys can stand it. That's fine.
Oh, we would love it. So good. So good. All right.
Um,
Are you guys
no,
continue?
I'll wrap it up, but Brenda, just don't go. I just wanna say goodbye off to the side, but,
Yep.
so everybody, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for having thank you a million times, Brenda, for coming on. You guys
Yep.
should all go check out her website because
Yes.
her stuff is so good.
Well,
Amazing.
thank
And yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you,
Brenda.
Brenda.
Thanks,
See
thank
everybody.
you. It
you
was
this
lovely to
summer.
be here.
Okay.